Okay, welcome to the Cinder meeting for 23rd of December, last one of this year. It looks like there's not much on the agenda, so mostly announcements, and we can take a look at the bugs that have come in, but that's pretty much it. Okay, so we did the meeting time change poll. I'm supposed to be taking notes in IRC. All right, so topic announcements. Okay. Okay, so the results are in from the poll. There were 8 responses. But basically what happened was the winner was no change. So they got 5 love it and 0 definitely nots. The other 2 options had 3 loves it, but also 1 definitely not for each one. So it looks like the best thing to do is just stay right where we are. So that's what we'll do. And then we'll just have to remember anything that might use Lucio's expertise we'll do later in the meetings. Okay, and then the next topic is the Wallaby spec freeze. Okay, so the spec freeze has happened. Sophia, your spec got in. Rajat's, yours also. And then there were a couple other ones, but I can't remember. And then the NVMe ones got revised over the last couple days. And those just merged a couple minutes ago, actually. So that's it. There was, let me give you a link to the email just so we have it in the notes about the announcement. So the extension covered 3 specs, and then there were 3 other ones that needed more work, but I figured since we were doing an extension, I could extend it to those also, but there's been no action on those specs. So there's no way, the extension ends in like 3 hours. So there's no way it would get merged. So that's pretty much it. So it looks like so anyway, so thank you for everyone who proposed a spec. And milestone 2 is coming up at R-12, which is the week of January 18th. So that's also the deadline for new drivers. So the NVMe team is going to have to really kick it up and get that done. But that's it. So we got this. So the specs are all settled. Let me move up the holiday schedule, and then we'll discuss the pip resolver business because that is a pain. All right. So as far as just want to mention the holiday schedule. Let me put this in here too. All right, so as you notice, there's a large proportion of Red Hatters who are both on the core team and general Cinder team participants. Red Hat has this tradition of a shutdown week, which they've changed the name of it, but we're still doing it. So you can pretty much expect nobody from Red Hat to be around until after New Year's, starting tomorrow. Or actually starting today, for me anyway. So I just want to mention that for anybody so expect, it'll be slow to get reviews and stuff done. I imagine people will occasionally check in, but I mean, this has been a really rough year, I imagine, on everybody. And I'm definitely going to be using my holidays to not do work. So I'll check in occasionally, but, not reliably for sure. So just so you're aware of that. And I wish everybody a happy holiday, and please recharge yourselves so that we can hit the ground running in January. So our next Cinder meeting will be the week of January 4th, which I think will make our meeting happen on January 6th. So it'll be the regular IRC meeting. So we'll see you in IRC then. All right, so I should write this into the notes though. Okay. All right. And then the other thing that's been happening has been, I think I may have mentioned this last week, although I can't remember because it's been kind of a blur. Pip got updated, and one of the major improvements was like a super heavy duty resolver that like really looks carefully and tries to figure stuff out. And as a result, it detected a lot of inconsistencies in some of our constraints that the old resolver had been allowing through. And as a result, a lot of stuff couldn't get built. So we've been working on that. I've been working on the stable branches that you can release from, and Yvonne has been working on some of the stable branches that we don't get releases from, but that we still commit to, because until we get this stuff fixed, you can't merge anything. So as far as Cinder itself goes, we got Master, Victoria, and Usuri merged. So those seem to be working okay. Now with Train, I've got to patch up, but it's a little bit weird. I should be writing this in our notes. Okay. Okay, let me put a link to the Etherpad. Whoops. All right, anyway, if you want to take a look at the Train one, I would say it's kind of a train wreck. So part of the thing with this resolver, now Alan thinks he may have detected a bug in it that was an infinite loop. I didn't quite see that. What I saw, at least for the stuff I was doing, I mean, I thought it was in an infinite loop and I just let it sit, but it eventually would, what it seems to be doing is it draws an enormous dependency graph and then tries to satisfy it. And it seems to download dependencies, crack them open, and look at them to see what they depend on, and then adds them to the chart and then sees if it can resolve it. And if it can't, it moves on to the next one. And some of those take a really long time. So I mean, it will produce output that says, hey, this is taking longer than you might expect. You might want to just, feel free to Control C to abort it, or just wait, or just, scrunch down your dependencies so that it's easier to resolve. So basically, what I wound up doing was, so if you look at the test requirements on the Train Cinder patch, let me put the thing, and thanks for Jot for giving Lucio the location. Where's the Train? So you can see in the commit message, I tried to keep track of what changes I was making, but at some point, you just have to stop. But the test requirements, well, I don't know if this is a good practice, and I don't know, so I'm sort of waiting for Sean to get time to take a look at this. So if you absolutely have to have something, well, you can't merge. If you want, your patches to be tested and make sure they're getting through Zool, you can put a dependency on this until we merge it, and then it should work. Now, so what I did here, these are indirect dependencies, but they just were taking a really long time for pip to resolve. So what I did was, even though we don't use, so that's why I put them in test requirements, even though they're not really test requirements, because they're not really Cinder requirements either. They're indirect dependencies. But by pushing them, because who knows who's actually using this stuff? It's some of our dependencies, and we don't know what they've tried, what range they've got. And if they're anything like OpenStack, right, the range is like really wide, because over the last few cycles, it's just been getting wider and wider. So what I did here was for these ones that were taking a really long time to resolve, I just pushed them to the range where I knew they were going to work based on other stuff. And so that made the resolver work a lot faster, because instead of trying to check every single dependency, it can just crush the versions down into a manageable set. So I don't know if this is a good practice, but I didn't know what else to do. So Sean had mentioned somewhere in IRC, I think, that maybe we'll be putting another requirements file. But I don't know if that's going to happen. So anyway, I just wanted to explain what's going on there, because I had to do this in Cinder train. I had to do it, I think, in all the stable branches for Brick. And then I just did it for the Python Cinder client also. And it does seem to make a difference. But I just don't know. And I guess the other thing we need to think about, this is sort of another Sean question, is I'm thinking we really need to maybe at milestone 2 or milestone 3 revise all the requirements and bring everything up to like the latest of everything, so that we can have like a month or so to test and make sure everything gets met, so that they don't get way out of whack again. Because like I said last time, my main concern with this, with having the lower constraints, is that they had gotten so low that we were never actually running. The only job that was actually running with those was the lower constraints job. And all that does is see if you can build the environment and run the unit tests. So it's not giving all that stuff a good workout, really. So I prefer to get these closer to reality. So we've done that for Cinder, but what I'm noticing, right, everybody's releasing stuff constantly. So we're going to be, a few point versions behind everything by the time milestone 3 happens. So I'm thinking maybe we should start to make it a practice, just at milestone 3, update the requirements, update the lower constraints, and then see what happens. Now, the stable branches are harder to do, so that will help with the stable branches from now on, because we'll have moved everything up. Because the lower constraints, I don't know when they were introduced, but that file really hadn't been updated, except for adding a few things to it since it was introduced, and that may have been Queens or Rocky or something. So it was pretty much out of date. So anyways, I think if we get on a cadence of updating things, that will be better, and we'll get feedback from other people. But anyway, so the changes we're trying to make in the stable branches are more conservative than what I did for the master. So for master, I pretty much moved everything up, but the stable ones, I'm trying to make minimal amount of changes to get everything to pass again. Yeah, I don't know. And then I think there was no resolution the last time I looked. There was like a discussion on the mailing list about the, whether it's worth having the lower constraints job or not. And that's, as far as I can tell, that's been kind of just inconclusive. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know. This has been an enormous pain in the butt, but hopefully it won't continue to happen. But we'll see. Okay.
So Brian, I had one question.
Sure.
Yeah, so didn't we update the lower constraint while doing the migration to Bionic to Focal recently?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like for every migration from Xenial to Bionic and Bionic to Focal, we update the lower constraint every time. I think I am not sure.
I think there were some changes made, but I don't know how widespread it was. But I guess, and I'm just basing that based on, we did the Focal migration, and I know when I did the Cinder, the update to master, I changed a lot of stuff, and some of the things were like, 3 or 4 major versions. So I don't know that, I think it was more as there were changes made, but it was just based on what broke, rather than bringing things up to date. Although maybe does that answer your question? I'm not sure I answered your question.
Yeah, my question was basically if Focal version comes up and then it should, like, we update the lower constraints to match what is of Focal, then that should take care of like this thing as well, like the pip resolver as well.
Well, so the thing is, right, with using, so pip is independent of Focal, really. So what Focal does is it's a binary dependencies. So, and I think our binary dependency file doesn't actually have any versioning in it. So I think what happens with Focal is we get a specific version of Python and then some of the basic packages. But then as far as like running the tests and stuff, we're pulling stuff out of PyPy or however you pronounce it. So I think that's why, so I think that's why the lower constraints really hadn't changed at all as part of the Focal migration, except where, so it may have been just binary dependency. There were some things, right? Because there were some changes, but there weren't really wholesale. So I guess that the answer, you can't really rely on that to catch all these. But anyway, so when everyone's back, I'll bring this up again, next year at one of the early meetings, just so we can figure out if we want to, maybe we'll start a thing on the mailing list to see if this is a good idea to just update the requirements. But I think it probably is, because I don't know. I mean, it looked like you can run our unit tests with some of these really old versions of Python packages, but I really don't know, hopefully they would all contain bug fixes, right? If you had updates. And so it would be better to run with stuff that had bug fixes than stuff that didn't. So it may have just, who knows? Anyway, okay. I'm talking too much, so I'll stop. So any questions about that? So please take a look at those. I just got the Cinder client. Alan was working on the Cinder client, and I kind of hijacked his patch yesterday because I wanted to at least try to get the Cinder, make sure the Cinder client was working. I haven't looked at the Brick Cinder client extension or Cinderlib, but since Cinderlib was pretty new, I'm hoping, its requirements. It has fewer requirements, I think, and hopefully it's okay, but I have to go look. And then Rajat, we need to talk to Gorka early in the year because I think it's the week before Milestone 2. We've got to release Cinderlib for Victoria. So I think it was all ready to go, but I didn't get an actual approval from Gorka saying let's do it. I know he didn't want to get the Privsep stuff in until after the stable Victoria was cut, but I don't know if there was anything else. So we'll just put it on for when we get back in January. We'll do that right away.
Yeah, I also didn't officially talk to him regarding the release, but I think there was just the preset patch that was a functional change, and Gorka said that he didn't want to get that in, so I think they're good to go. But I think he's returning on 11th, right?
Yes, so that should be...
The release should be before 15th, I guess.
Okay, so we should be okay. Yeah, so I think probably you can get the patch set up when you get back next year. Set up the patch for the current head, probably. And then we'll be all set. Just put it as a work in progress, and then Gorka can just, as soon as he approves it, we'll be all set. And that'll be good. Okay. Yeah, so I'll try to get a couple more of the Cinder client things up. But anyway, if you're working on something and it's failing all the tests, you can use one of these as a dependency in your commit message, and then you'll pick this up. I'm not going to push these through though, because what we've been talking about, I'm not like 100% sure this is the best way to make these changes. But anyway, the gates seem to be working again gradually. So, all right, I'll shut. So that's it for announcements, I think. And thanks to Yvonne for working on the stable branches, Stein and those guys. It's yeah, and then right, because once we get into the older ones, you got to start worrying about Python 2 versus Python 3, and so it gets even more fun. So it's not quite under control yet, but it's not hopeless. So,
Yeah, so
Yvonne, did you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I faced some issues with Swift deployment on Stain branch. I didn't have time to investigate it, but I
Yeah,
will do it.
I saw that too. I was just hoping that maybe it's going to go away.
Yeah, I do several rechecks, but I've got the same issue.
Oh, okay. All right. So, yeah, we'll have to investigate that when the
It
Swift
affects
team.
Stain. I will update Rocky patch a bit later,
Okay.
today or tomorrow, so we will know if Rocky is affected or not. And Queens is not affected by this,
Okay.
at least for now, but I put some patch to Queens just to bump Cap Bandit analyzer to,
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, you caught
because
that problem with Bandit, right?
because it tries to install Python 3 only version for Python 2.7 and everything
Okay.
is broken.
Yeah. Um, okay. Yeah, thanks for working on that. And then Yvonne caught
Yeah,
this other problem. There was a, I don't know how this got through, but there was a we made a change. I mean, actually, I made a change where I introduced some tests that needed an update to the SQL Alchemy utils, and that got backported all the way. I don't know how far, but it got backported to places where it violated upper constraints, and everything
yes,
was running fine. I don't know what was going on with those jobs, but yeah, so that was a problem too.
yes, but the good news is we can leave the test in stable versions too.
Okay, so
It
yeah,
works with all the SQL Alchemy utils.
yeah, I think what I did was I must have just updated it to the current version at that point, because the whatever version we had didn't have what I needed, and I can't remember. Um, anyway, so thanks for working that out. So I think so that was just another weird thing that somehow is getting past the pip resolver, and I don't know how. Okay. Um, Anybody else have an announcement? And Lucio, I don't know, you may have missed the time change poll was not a success from your point of view. But from the point of view
Yeah,
of saying that now is a good time to meet, um, yes. So we'll keep in mind that you may be late and make sure anything that we need your input on gets handled later in the meeting. So,
yeah, no problem.
yeah, thanks for bringing it up, though. It's always good to just check every so often, because the team changes and people's requirements change. Okay. All right. The only topic we've got is the bug review for R17. Let me switch the topic in IRC. Um, Actually, let me give myself before I leave today, I'll send something to the mailing list just listing these patches, or maybe I may go through and change the topics on all of them so that they're easy to find, in case anybody needs them for you know dependencies. Hopefully, everybody's having a good holiday, so feel free not to be spending your time trying to figure out dependencies. Um, um, okay. Um, okay, so I think Michael put together a bug list, but I think he's away at this point. And then, oops, I better. Okay, so we can. We have 5 new bugs, 2 in Cinder, 3 driver bugs. Oh, all right. So the first one's me. Actually, that patches up if anybody feels like reviewing it. I think it's a pretty quick review. It's just like a 1-line change and then 500 lines of release note. So I'll look for that while we're talking. Cinder backup uses surprisingly high memory.
We need to ask bug reporter what actually they do, what kind of backup storage they have, what is volume backend.
Yeah, and I think it's probably not surprising the backup daemon is idle if if compression and stuff is happening
Yeah.
and data's being transferred. So I'm not that. I mean, it'd be surprisingly high if your volumes were 20 megs in size. But with volumes being at least a gig, I would not be surprised that if you're backing up stuff, you're going to be using 4 gig of memory. But anyway, so we can follow up on that eventually. And then
Yeah, and in bug report said that Cinder backup service is in idle state.
right.
So maybe it is some memory leak.
They didn't mention the backend there, but Gorka did a calculation for Ceph. So for a 1 GB volume, I think around 1.82 GB RAM was required at least for Ceph or something like that. We have a doc for it, but yeah, it uses relatively high memory during backups.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like completely out of line, but who knows? So it may be that they're not looking at the right metrics. And we got Powermax Bug and Hitachi driver bug. I'll have to check to see who, because Hitachi just contributed a driver last cycle, so they should still be around. I'll have to round them up. Yeah, we may need to have like a driver meeting. I mean, not weekly, but it may have to have or maybe just make one of the Cinder meetings in January, just focus on drivers, because it would be good to. I think like everything else in 2020, driver participation has dropped off and people are just tired. Okay, and then we've got some brick bugs.
Yep. The first one is one that I reported.
Okay.
And
okay.
I'm not 100% sure that this is a OS rig problem.
Okay.
I suspect that probably is an Oslo log problem because it's about how they render JSONs in the logs.
Okay.
So that's what I have for that one.
Okay. All right. So I guess the advice is don't use JSON.
Yeah. Use JSON.
So that can be set in the config file, right, by the operator? Okay.
Right, in Cinder config.
Okay, good. All right. So that's got a workaround. That's good. Python Cinder client. Well, that looks like it has a workaround. So, oh, I thought the holiday message at the bottom was that part of the output from the error. Okay. Well, that's nice. Okay.
Nice.
Doesn't look like there's anything pressing that we need to worry about, so that's good. Great. Oh yeah, I never did post. Now, Rajat, you posted what was that bug?
Which one?
Oh, the group snapshot thing. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't linked to the launchpad. I'm not sure. Let me check. It's the review.
Oh, okay. So what? Yeah, I wonder.
The
Oh, maybe
review
I
has
forgot. Did I
closed the
forget?
bug, but
All right, let me try to grab this. Sorry, I'm just. Okay. I had closed this bug. Maybe I got a typo in the bug. Okay. Okay, so I just posted the review for that bug. Um, Wait a minute, that should be a pretty quick review. I think it's like a one-line change and then 38 lines of release notes. Um, so I sent a thing about it to the mailing list, so that operators could change it if they want to. We hadn't heard anything about it, so I'm assuming nobody had come across it out in the wild. Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our list of topics. So I guess it's time for general discussion. Now we call it open discussion. I don't know what I'm. Okay. Anybody got anything they would like to discuss? All right. So my plan for the rest of the so I'm leaving at noon my time, which is in like 2 hours. Well, 2 hours and like 24 minutes maybe. Um, I'll try to get patches up for the releasable branches for Python Cinder client for the pip resolver thing. And then that's it. So I'll be available on and off. I probably will not be on IRC, so if you need to contact me, send me an email, which I will occasionally check. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a good holiday. People whose companies are not giving them time off over the next week and a half, don't feel like you have to do all the reviews because there's nobody from Red Hat around. So please take the time, try to get recharged. We'll hit the ground running in 2021. It can't possibly be a worse year than 2020 was. Actually, I probably shouldn't say that out loud. Anyway, any final comments?
Brian, do we have an Etherpad for the second mid cycle? I had a topic in mind which I may forget later.
Yes, same. It's the same. Yeah, let me put it in the meeting notes. Yeah, because that's right. R-9 is the next mid cycle. So yeah, it's the same Etherpad. Let me grab it. So yeah, so please start thinking about things. And if you think of a topic, please add it to the Etherpad. Yes, that's it. So the major next deadline is milestone 2 is the week of January 18th. So it's mainly a thing. It's the new driver merge deadline. So reviewers expect to be. I mean, I think right. We just reviewed the specs for the NVMe OF stuff for OS Brick. So that and the Kioxia driver will be the big deals. I think the I forget what it's called, Open Jovian DSS driver merged, and there's a patch up with some follow-up stuff. And then there was one other, oh yeah, we've got Walt's Sapphire SCSI driver. So we'll have a lot of stuff to review early in January. All right, any comments or questions? Okay, well, I'm not against ending the meeting early. So I just want to wish everybody happy holidays, whatever holidays you're celebrating, please enjoy them. And then the next Cinder meeting will be on January 6th. So regular time, regular location in IRC, and I'll see you all there. So I'm going to stop the recording now because our meeting is officially over.